Man, I really thought I had it all, you know? Everyone looked at us and saw the perfect picture. A real-life dream that other people read about in those fluffy relationship stories long. My guy was charming, successful, the full package, and honestly, the endless high fives from my friends made it hard not to believe the hype. But here's the kicker. No matter how perfect things looked on the outside, a weird, icy feeling sat heavy in my stomach. Like a tiny voice was screaming that this polished life was actually just a really good lie. What's super messed up is that his perfection became my worst enemy. I mean, how do you tell your best friend, hey, I think my perfect boyfriend is totally fake? That thought alone made me feel nuts. I should have listened to that wise little voice instead of trying to read his mind. Seriously, if you're in that spot, don't try to solve him. Try this. Just open your notes app and write down the exact weird moments when he seemed distant or fake. That simple act of writing is the first step out of those awful toxic relationship stories. Look, it wasn't about him being a bad person, but about him being a bad fit. A total misalignment. It was like he was a great actor giving the performance of a lifetime, always on stage when people were around, but the curtains felt heavy when it was just us. I figured out that all that public charm wasn't for me. It was the ultimate distraction, a powerful magic trick to keep me from seeing what was really going down. If I'd only known that those tiny weird moments were clues pointing to a huge secret life waiting for me to find. I started noticing tiny things, just like little cracks in that perfect mirror. It wasn't a huge fight or anything. It was more like the way he'd suddenly check his phone with a weird jumpiness whenever a specific name popped up, a name I didn't recognize. These subtle shifts were my first major red flags, far more telling than any big outbursts in classic toxic relationship stories because they showed a secret life was being managed. He also started forgetting small details of our relationship stories long, almost as if the script he was reading didn't have my parts highlighted anymore. It sounds simple, but pay attention to the timing of things, you know? Like, suddenly he'd only be super available when I was busy, or his messages would get short right when he should be relaxed at home. For example, if you notice your partner only texts late at night, try sending a short, friendly text during the day and see how long the pause is. That lag time is often where the other life lives. What was really telling was how his excuses for distance started getting more and more complicated, like he was building a whole fake house out of flimsy alibis. And gosh, the emotional coldness was the worst. It's like he was still there physically, but his mind had definitely checked out for another destination. He'd hug me, but I wouldn't feel the oomph anymore. It was all mechanical. That shift from genuine connection to programmed affection is a huge, screaming sign that the relationship is running on fumes, and someone is busy managing a whole separate reality. But hey, it gets worse. Those flimsy alibis were about to turn into one huge concrete lie. When I finally tried to talk about those weird feelings, that's when the real game started, the awful gaslighting that defines the worst toxic relationship stories. Instead of listening, he'd use his charm and his amazing reputation like a weapon against me, basically saying, "Look at how great I am, babe. Everyone loves me, so clearly you're the one with the problem." He was so smooth that he'd actually make me apologize for asking questions, making me feel totally ungrateful for the perfect life I had. It's a mind game marathon, seriously. He'd twist my reality until I was questioning my own memory and sanity. I remember thinking, maybe I am just paranoid and insecure because he had this incredible ability to make every doubt I had boomerang back onto me as a character flaw. If you're living this, please stop trying to convince them. Instead, try this practical thing. Write down what you saw and what he said right after. Seeing the contradiction on paper is your lifeboat out of that confusing mental mess. His strategy worked because I was so desperate to believe in our relationship stories long that I let his reputation blind me to the truth about him. He used that external validation, the praise from friends, the envy of others, to shut down my internal wisdom, that gut feeling that screamed danger. This is why you need to protect your intuition like it's gold, because that sneaky feeling is always right. And that perfect reputation of his, well, it was the key to his next big deception. His big secret weapon, the ultimate cover story, was this whole travel writer thing he suddenly became obsessed with. The perfect excuse for his disappearances and all the distance. He'd be gone for weeks, maybe months, and everyone would be so impressed, saying things like, "Wow, what a life! You two are living such cool relationship stories long." This alibi was brilliant because it sounded professional and exciting, making any complaint I had sound selfish or needy, like I was trying to hold him back from his dream. Honestly, I bought it for way too long because it was a complicated lie that actually made sense in the world. He used all the right buzzwords, like creative freedom, finding inspiration, remote work, to explain why he was constantly hopping continents and why his schedule was always a total mess. But deep down, I kept thinking, who really needs to be in Cambodia for 6 weeks just to write an article about coffee? That level of justification is exhausting for the deceiver, but it's pure genius for creating a believable escape hatch from our life. This whole travel writer persona became the official narrative for why he was emotionally unavailable and physically distant. It was the acceptable, polished face of our totally toxic relationship stories. It's like he built a fortress around himself using passports and exotic locations, making it impossible for me to follow him or check his story. But here's the thing about fortress walls. They always leave digital footprints on the ground outside. I decided it was time to stop listening to his stories and start looking at the evidence. The moment I stopped trusting his words and started digging into the small, non-obvious details, everything cracked wide open. It wasn't the big things that gave him away. It was the digital breadcrumbs, the tiny mistakes that people in toxic relationship stories always leave behind. I noticed these bizarre timing anomalies, like when he'd text me good morning at 3 p.m. my time, claiming he was just super jet-lagged, when mathematically, based on his supposed location, he should have been texting me at night. And get this, I found a whole hidden layer of digital life. Not on Instagram where he posted those fake travel writer pics, but on these super niche apps and old forgotten email accounts. He was so focused on maintaining the public image of our perfect relationship stories long that he got sloppy with his private channels. This is the expert tip. Don't look where they want you to look. Check out old devices or search for their name using different spelling variations on platforms they'd never mention. I also saw weird charges on a card I didn't know he had, not for flights or hotels, but for local services in places that weren't even on his travel itinerary. It was like following a GPS trail that ended in a different, secret location every time. Seeing those hidden accounts and those strange transactions, that was the moment the doubt vanished and the cold, hard certainty hit me. I knew then that his travel writing was just a mask for something much, much bigger and far more intimate. I finally put all the pieces together, the weird charges, the timing gaps, the fake travel writer life, and the whole horrifying truth just smacked me in the face. It turns out his real life, the one he was protecting with all that charming gaslighting, wasn't a secret article assignment. It was a completely secret identity on another continent. He wasn't just cheating. He was living a parallel, fully established life, including a deep, intimate relationship that validated every single one of my instincts about his truth, confirming the ultimate in toxic relationship stories. This wasn't just a fling. This was a whole other relationship stories long that he was writing simultaneously, and ours was just the cover chapter he performed for the world. He was doing all the things with someone else that he was supposed to be doing with me, and the emotional connection was real, just not with me. It was a cold, hard dose of reality, realizing that the man I loved wasn't just deceiving me about who he was seeing, but about who he fundamentally was and who he needed to be. The shock of finding out he was leading this full-blown double life was actually less painful than the years of doubting my own sanity, believe it or not. The moment I saw the undeniable proof, the confusion finally lifted and the power shifted back to me. All that pain, all that crazy-making doubt was immediately replaced by a clear, sharp certainty I wasn't crazy. That single realization was the beginning of my freedom, giving me the immediate strength to face the wreckage and start making my escape. The absolute hardest part wasn't the confrontation, It was the tiny, silent decision to finally admit that my perfect relationship story was actually one of those ugly, toxic relationship stories. The greatest act of self-love I performed was owning the temporary shame of saying, wow, I was wrong about him. It takes immense courage to walk away from a beautiful facade that everyone envies. But holding on to that lie will destroy you from the inside out, turning your beautiful self into a nervous wreck obsessed with managing his deception. It's time to stop treating yourself like a detective trying to solve a crime and start acting like an executive making a non-negotiable business decision about your future. You don't need a final confession or an apology from them. You have the evidence, you have your gut, and that's more than enough to file for divorce from the narrative they forced on you. For instance, instead of engaging in an argument, try sending a short professional text saying, I have the information I need, and this relationship is over. Do not explain, do not negotiate. That moment of stepping into my own truth, even though it was painful, was the fastest route to my real happiness because it put the power squarely back in my hands. The real lesson here isn't just about catching a liar, it's about learning to trust your intuition, that quiet nagging voice, over the loudest, most charming performance. Trust me, friend, the peace you feel after choosing to protect yourself is worth every single painful moment of admitting the lie. So here's the challenge. If you recognize even a hint of this gaslighting and deception in your own life, what are you going to do right now to reclaim your own narrative? Don't wait for another piece of evidence. Start writing your next chapter today, the one where you are the hero, not the victim.